Hello, friends. Welcome to the Adrian Moment, a podcast brought to you by True Story FM. I'm Ocean, and I'm joined as always by my partner in sports movie dissection, Jim Pullen.
Hi, how y'all doing?
Today, we are going to talk about 61.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Yankee Stadium.
This is a fantastic story, fellas. Two Yankees playing in the house that Ruth built, both going after his record. It's great for baseball. Holy cow!
There it goes! Back to the wall! It's gone!
Maris comes over from Kansas City, first year with the team. He beats Mickey out for the MVP. You're telling me Mantle wouldn't be pissed off that Maris doesn't have something to prove? How about the home run record? You think he got a shot at the Babe?
I think if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Mickey.
It's pretty amazing the guy can play at all, considering how much pain he's in.
Maybe if he took better care of himself, he wouldn't be injured so much.
It's a tough town not to have fun in.
You can write what you want, Sam. The fans love this guy. They love him.
How come Maris never smiles? He's having the season of his life, and he looks like a zombie out there.
Number 7, Mickey Mantle. It says 80% of the fans are rooting for Mickey.
Well, I guess that seems right, yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know, maybe I'm not a New York kind of guy, Sam. I'm just some dumb redneck from North Dakota.
As for the M&M boys, I'm told there's a feud growing between...
Are we feud? Yeah, I guess so. It's on TV.
Sources say.
Yours.
Well, there's a couple of huckleberries out there letting Roger know they don't want him to break Ruth's record.
Can you believe this? They're booing him in his own ballpark.
Why's it gotta be they've only got room in their hearts for one guy?
I don't know, sweetheart.
You guys are all over him day and night.
A film by Billy Crystal.
You're like a movie star to these people, you know. But me, if I don't want to talk about things and I just want to play ball, what does that make me? I mean, does it make me the bad guy?
There's no bad guy, Raj.
Thomas Jane. Barry Pepper. 61.
You know, Jim, I've found that after watching this movie, and we talked about bringing this up for this podcast, that I should open up with a true confession. And my true confession is, I don't think I have not watched a baseball game in about 15 years. I think that I have really gone on a whole tribe about, well, I'm going to watch baseball on television if it is Game 7 in the 9th inning of the World Series. Like, I'll watch that. So all right. if I happen to catch it, but that's really pretty much it. Like, which I know is a definite difference from us. Like, how much baseball have you watched in the past year?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I even just started watching a college game just a few days ago.
You watch college?
Jackie Robinson. Yeah. So I mean, I love baseball. I've stopped to watch kids play sandlot ball. Just like pull over and just watch, because it's baseball. Something's happening. There's something that's always different in each and every game. Yeah. So I stop and watch it. I love baseball.
Yeah. No, I've seen a couple of live games. I've had some experiences where we've been traveling somewhere, and I do find that I really do enjoy going to a live game. So I saw a Houston Astros game. Had an experience where we went out to. We were in Durham, North Carolina, so we went to a Durham Bulls game.
Nice.
And that was a lot of fun going to the game itself. But as far as watching it on television and really enjoying and following the sport in that manner, I find I just don't ever do it.
Yeah, it's baseball is a constant conversation in the household here, off season, during the season. In fact, just even this morning when we were waking up, the wife and I were talking baseball matters, like almost like as soon as we get out of bed. It was the first thing that was pretty much
you wake up
on
in
the topic.
First thing you and your wife talk about in the morning is baseball?
Yeah, today it was.
Wow, that's a love for the game. I don't remember the first time my wife and I talked about a sport right off. Like, Usually usually she wants to talk about something about whatever the kids are doing or anything like that. But you know what? I kind of like your motif. I may start saying, hey, when I wake up, hello, hey, honey, what do you think about the Niners' chances this year?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Baseball is pillow talk in the household.
All right.
No, it's good. I mean, that was my pickup line. I don't know if you ever knew that. That night that you introduced me to my wife.
Oh, really?
My slide over line was, so I hear you've got season tickets to the Mariners. When are you going to take me to a game?
Nice.
That was my line to her.
And after that, how long did it take you to get her to take you to a game?
Well, I found out that she didn't have season tickets, but
so your opening salvo was a lie.
Yeah, no, it just hit me real hard to find out that she didn't have season tickets. But
and you didn't just walk away right then?
No.
Okay.
I'm glad I didn't though, because that was like the intro into like when can we go and see a game together and all that.
Right.
We met in March. The season, was just getting ready to get kicked off, and yeah, we ended up meeting up the first week of opening week and hanging out at a couple of games. And then we would always refer to Safeco Field at the time. That's where the Mariners played at the time. It was Safeco Field. Now it's T-Mobile. But
Safeco ran out of money.
Yes.
Because they ran out of money and that. Yeah.
So this is in 2000, and so we end up hanging out and going to a bunch of games the first week and the first month, and we end up just calling Safeco Field our happy place. So we would call each other up or text each other and say, hey, let's go meet at the happy place. So we worked in two different locations, and we would go and either meet in a central location and then go to the game together, or we would just meet at Safeco Field and then go and hang out at a game. So if you had a bad day at work, whatever, or you just wanted to go and share something, that's what we ended up doing and using Safeco Field as our happy place.
You're making baseball start to sound romantic.
There is some romance to it, absolutely. And because it was our happy place, I ended up proposing to Angie at Safeco Field using the moose. I made a sign that said
the Mariner
Angie,
Moose.
Yeah, the Mariner Moose.
Okay.
I gave a donation to be able to have the moose come down. And the scary thing is that it was supposed to happen like at the end of the second inning, and the end of the second inning happened, and the moose wasn't around. And
wait, you're telling me that I cannot rely on the punctuality of a moose?
No, I don't think so. Not at least in 2000. Maybe now you can.
I'm gonna have to change my worldview. I structure a lot of my life on that moose are on time. So,
normally you can tell a good time by moose time, but not on this day, because at the end of the second inning he was up in the 300 level, and he was doing the moving on up moment where they would bring somebody from the 300 level and bring them down to like the 100 level, upgrade your seats for free kind of thing.
Were you in the 100 level?
Yeah, I was in the 100 level. We're on the third base side, and we're watching the game. Obviously, my soon-to-be fiancé does not know.
Spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert! Sorry. Oh shoot! Sorry.
I was going through did she say yes?
True, definite spoiler moment there. Yeah. But so I'm freaking out, right? I'm looking up and I see the moose up there, and I paid good money to get the moose to come down here in this end of the second inning, so that he could show my sign, and he's nowhere near to be anywhere near us. Third inning comes, he's not there yet. I'm freaking out. Angie's looking at me like, what's going on with you? I'm like, nothing. Finally he stops by, and he's running up and down the line and up and down our aisle, and he's got the sign, and the sign says like, Angie, I'm your number one fan. And then on the other side it says, will you marry me? So now the funny thing about this is that, I'm thinking this is a sweet moment. And I forgot that Angie hates the moose.
Well, I mean, he's late. So
he's late.
Yeah.
But she always sees him as like an intrusive aspect of the game, And so here he is, he's standing there, and she's reading the sign out loud, and she's like, who cares? Who's this Angie anyways? And the Moose comes over and
she didn't realize that she was Angie.
Right. No, she didn't realize that she was in the game, and she was zoned in, and you know, it's like the fourth inning, and things are starting to heat up, and
had
the Moose is in the way.
Yeah, had the Moose been on time, she might have been in the right headspace.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
That's a good point. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so anyway, she gets out of the seat, and I'm down on one knee, and the Moose is giving her a hug, and she turns around, and there I am on one knee with the ring, asking her to marry me. And then the Moose flips the sign around and says, "Will you marry me?" And yeah. So, well, you've already ruined that she said yes, but then I feel like the one gap there in that you said, so she hates the Moose, she's wondering who this Angie is, and then somewhere on the Moose hugged her. So did the Moose just jump out and grab her? Or no. So the Moose came over and he like pulled her up, and she's like, "Oh, it's me," you know. So the Moose pulled her out of the seat and gave her a hug, which gave me time to be able to bend a knee and, you know, be on the ready when she's done hugging the Moose, as she turned around and was going to tell me how bad he stinks. Yeah, and so she
she turned around immediately changed when she saw you on one knee.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Good.
But from there, I don't really remember a whole lot. It was kind of like the whole day was a blackout moment. I was pretty anxious over the whole moment. But
That's an amazing story. That definitely does demonstrate how important baseball is to you.
Yeah. No, thank you. And baseball is like everything in the household for us, and you know, and that's really resonates to me in this movie, and for me as a baseball fanatic, I'm not a historian. I can't sit there and like, you know, quote things like some of these guys on the MLB network, you know, back in 1975 and that 1995. I can't quote that stuff. I can remember good moments, but I can't do the quoting like those guys do. But for somebody who enjoys baseball the way that I do, you know, this movie had a couple of special moments for me, and one of those scenes for me was where the commissioner, it's later on in the movie, and the commissioner's talking about with all the writers, you know, about the importance of the Babe's record, and you know, if one of these guys is going to break the Babe's record, is it a broken record if it happens before 154 games, or is it going to happen if it happens after? You know, how do we identify that this record was broken? And you know,
because of the change of the length of the season that year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you know, 61 was the first year that they well, it wasn't the first year, but it was the beginning of the new era, the 162 game season rather than the 154 game season.
Yeah, and that was only in the American League, right? The National League was still doing 152 or whatever the other number was.
The 154. Yeah, they may have been at that point in time. Yeah. So you know, it's like you know, to me, the significance of that scene and the discussion around that, as a baseball fanatic, again, is, you know, to me, it's extremely important, and it's a conversation that, you know, just continues. To me, it continued on in '98, and it continued on in 2001, and these are the years that, you know, the record was broken yet again and again. You know, '98 with Mark McGwire, and then in 2001 with Barry Bonds.
So, do you think those records shouldn't have counted unless they did it in 154 games?
You know, it's a really good question, and I think that, you know, a record is meant to be broken for the season, for that year, for whatever the season, and I'm using air quotes, you know, for whatever that season represents. So, you know, back in the day when they weren't wearing, you know, mitts and they were just throwing the ball around barehanded, you know, it was a different season then versus, you know, in 1998. So the difference is the significance of the era of baseball is what I'm really saying. To me is, you know, it's seasonal. So every record can change, you know, it's going to change every season.
So then if you then clearly disagree with that perspective that the record should only be inside of the season, why was that seem important to you?
Well, it's because, you know, it gives us some insight as to what was the thought process, what was the historical fact about the importance of Babe Ruth needing to own that record. and it should always be his record because he did it in less games. Like he should be rewarded something because he did it in less games. So I love the camaraderie in that conversation. You got a couple of writers who are like, no, it's a seasonal thing. It doesn't matter. Each season is different. You got a couple of writers who are like, no, you've got you got to do it in 154 or less to be able to beat the Babe. It's always the Babe's record. If we're going to give everybody more chances. So to me, that's what I really liked. It was just like everybody had their combative moment of discussion as to why the significance, either pro or against, for the 54 as being the true record or not.
Right, but did you ever find yourself convinced in any way about the argument that it should be only if you do it in 154 games?
No, there's really nothing there significant to me, as just like the way that I look at baseball. Baseball's season, each season is a different season. You're gonna encounter different aspects on every single game. So you can't necessarily just be like, okay, well, he did it in 154 games because that's how many games he was afforded. To me, the next season, as the game is expanding, if it's 162, or even in the future, if it was to go beyond 162, that's a season. That's the season for that baseball now, for that baseball era of now. Each year is different, right? Yeah. So, the Babe's record of 154, you can't blame me now for his lack of teams to play in his earlier days, right? You can't blame me because there wasn't as much baseball. Now, you can't blame me because now baseball is growing more each and every single season, and there's more games. Even the argument of there's more playoff games too versus back then. So like who's winning the World Series now it's a more difficult feat to win the World Series now versus back then. So there's other arguments that could be said on either side of the fence of 154 or not. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that honestly, the single conversation I think is a microcosm of one of the things that I also felt was one of the more important or even central themes of the entire movie. Right, the movie is structured, simply, right, where it's just you're following two baseball players that are having a great season and that they're chasing a 33-year-old record. But really, I think that the central theme of the movie, and is really crystallized not only in that scene but in other aspects throughout the movie, is that the theme is really hero worship. Right. And so that these sports writers, they want an interesting story to talk about it because, them chasing the record is interesting, but they so revere Babe Ruth. Right. Babe Ruth is for these sports writers. And you kind of have to remember this is 1961. So these are adult men, probably in their, some in their 40s, some in their 50s. For these men, Babe Ruth is their childhood hero. And he has this record that they revere. And so that hero worship of him, it makes it where now in 1961, the in some ways successor to Babe Ruth is Mickey Mantle, right? Which is a thing that if you know anything about baseball at the time, you know that Mickey Mantle's a big deal. He's still considered a big deal to this day. He was like the big main Yankee player at that time, right? And so then now he's the new hero, and so I think that their hero worship would allow for the new hero can break the old hero's record, and that would be okay. But what these sports writers could not handle was, well, Roger Maris is a guy that, he's a defended MVP. Sure, he's a good player, but he has not reached that pantheon. He's not in the Mount Olympus of baseball players that we care about, and so he hasn't gained our affinity. We don't revere him, love him the same way we love Mickey Mantle. So for him to break the record, it then makes it where you've now somehow sullied it, right? Like where you've made it less important, because if it's the Babe's record, it's a big wonderful thing that it's hard to it's a big wonderful mythological thing. And even if Mickey Mantle breaks it stays in that area. But if Roger Maris does it, it makes it seem like, well, if he does it, then anybody can do it. Right. And that is not something that they necessarily can stand for. Right. And I think that they, this part of why throughout it, where they have the, various news stories that fuel fans disliking of Roger Maris, where they create a rivalry between Maris and Mantle that doesn't even exist. right? And so that and then culminating in some ways in this conversation of the asterisk, or that it's not going to be a real record because the person that we have deemed worthy of having this record is not the one that breaks it.
So do you think in that conversation, like if we could actually get into a time machine and go and be a fly on the wall in those kind of conversations in a commissioner office, and the commissioner loved Babe Ruth, he played with Babe Ruth, so obviously he was a Babe Ruth guy, right? But do you think that they would have had that kind of conversation if Mickey Mantle was the only one chasing the record?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. So you think because he's the Yankee doodle dandy, he is the Yankee boy. Yep. He came up in the Yankee organization and he was already told you're going to be the next Joe DiMaggio or better. Right. And Joe D is on the field as this young kid is coming up as up through the baseball ranks, which wasn't much back then. But all of a sudden, this young kid is there, shaking hands with Joe DiMaggio, and already told you're going to take over the team from Joe D one of these days. So yeah, no, I agree. I think
who he clearly hated. And so the movie does it. It's a short scene, but the movie even gives you that, where you can tell that he and Joe, he doesn't like Joe DiMaggio at all.
No, zero. Like just him getting up away from the table in pure disgust, just because they were talking about Joe DiMaggio, just showed how much he hated. And then they go into the whole conversation about it there, which is a great little scene to give you that little tidbit.
Yes.
And then to see later on that, here he is, got to go and shake hands after, barfing up in a bucket all night long from the night prior because Joe D sent him off on this drinking tangent. And it's just, it's interesting. And it's definitely, hits the mark on the history aspect of it all and all that. But yeah, no, that's a great answer. I feel the same way too, that, if we were that fly on the wall and we were only talking about Mickey Mantle, nobody would have brought up anything about an asterisk or brought up anything of if he does it on the 162nd game, he broke the Babe's record. But
yeah. I think that honestly, you couldn't be a fly on the wall in the conversation, because that with the hero worship being what it was at that time, I think that the conversation doesn't even happen. It doesn't occur. There is no meeting. There's no question. If Mickey Mantle was the only one, or even if after that conversation, if Mickey Mantle had been able to maintain his health, go throughout the season, and then subsequently break the record on the 162nd game, there would have been no asterisk. Or it'd have been an asterisk for a year, and then the next year the commissioner would have been like, that whole asterisk thing was ridiculous. We're going to stick with this 162-game season thing, so let's just get rid of all the asterisks and make it a real record. Right? The whole thing doesn't go away. And then, and I guess really then, the interesting thing about the idea of the asterisk is, which I did not know that this was the different number of games was the reason, right? And that right. The interesting thing to me was the idea of that, that is portrayed in the movie, that the reason for the asterisk, which is the reason for the asterisk in the title, is that to put that in the baseball record books with an asterisk to say that it is a separate and distinct record because it was a longer season. It always did make me question, and I never could find anything about this where I was like, well, did they do this with other records? Most single season records are going to be broken at the end of the season, right? Because, if you have a guy that has the most complete games in a single season, he's probably going to do that last complete game somewhere near the end of the season, right? And then when he breaks the record. And so then I was really always curious about, well, were there other records that were broken in this time frame that had an asterisk? And I really couldn't find any that had it. And that really, to me, bolstered that there was something specific about this record and something specific about this moment that created the controversy of the asterisk to begin with.
Yeah, and it's the love of the Babe, the sanctity of that record. I love baseball. Now, don't get me wrong. Hitting home runs is hard. It's one of the single most difficult feats that you can do. You're hitting a circular object with a cylindrical item that is wood.
That's a lot of geometry. That's a lot of geometry here.
Yeah, thank you.
This isn't the math podcast.
And it takes like 1.3 seconds from the time that the ball, or milliseconds from the time that the ball is released to the batter, that you gotta be able to react real quick. It's an amazing feat. Home runs, especially at that level, it's absolutely amazing. But yeah, you're right. There's really not many other records, even in other sports. If you think about it, there's really nothing that's like asterisk, other than like maybe Olympic stuff. As people have been, you win, and then all of a sudden, you're a new winner is announced because somebody failed a PP test or something. That's right. The only other times that I think that you actually see where there's asterisks of records that shift or moved or need some kind of special denotion as to what the significance is. But yeah, it's like the underlining is it's because the love of the Babe.
You're right. No, that does bring up a memory. I forgot about that. The 979 Ben Johnson ran in the 88 Olympics, where they put an asterisk on it because he failed the drug test, and so therefore Carl Lewis then got the gold medal, which everybody in America was happy. But yeah, and so I think that there is an aspect of it with the Babe, but then even moving forward, and I think that the reason. Let me back up, and this will be kind of the bolster from the point of the thing. Inside of this movie, one of the things that I found interesting about it as a whole, and just kind of seeing what it is about, and kind of how our conversation goes straight to the record, is the movie is really just about the record, right? And so it's one of the things of where, okay, so yes, you have a story about a single season, and two great players that are having a great season trying to chase it, and some other interpersonal things that are going on with them. But the movie is so focused on really what it is about the record. It doesn't focus on the team. It doesn't even provide a surprise, right? Like in the opening scene, they tell you that he breaks the record. Right. So then you know what's going to happen in that, and that it allows you to really get into the right context of the single thing with this record. And the thing that I guess I've, curious about it, as far as, since you clearly are a much larger baseball fan than I am, why, like if there's any reason that you either have or are aware of why this record is so important, because baseball is a statistical game, and records in baseball matter a lot of times more than other sports, but not like this one. Like this one, if you compare it to other sports, like for example, who threw the most touchdowns in a single season, right? That's Peyton Manning. But who scored the most goals in hockey in the season? Well, it's Wayne Gretzky, but who knows that? And it would probably be your first guess if someone asked you, but you'd be guessing. Right, or who scored the most points in the NBA? Again, a lot of people's guess would be Wilt Chamberlain, which is correct. But okay. It'd be a thing where you're guessing, right? Like a lot of people are like, most points in a season, Kobe, and so. But these records, while would be in a lot of ways in these other major sports unequivalent to the most home runs, it doesn't roll off the tongue like the most home runs does. Like, everyone knew it was Roger Maris. So then when Mark McGwire broke it, the news Mark McGwire. Now it's Barry Bonds. There's Barry Bonds. Like, is there, what is, what is it you think about baseball? Why this record, amongst, in the side of a sport where records are so important, why is this record the one that matters the most?
I think it's because it's got to be the single most difficult feat to do in the sport. Like, yes, I don't mean to take away anything from the pitchers. So I don't from an offensive perspective, it is the most difficult feat that you can do as a batter. Like, and then on the other hand, batting average, here these guys are, especially in baseball today. Back then, baseball was way different. But, baseball today, you got guys who are making millions and millions of dollars for succeeding 25% of the time or less. So that's somebody who's batting, a 250 batting average, right? And these guys are getting paid millions and millions of dollars. So I fear, or I feel, that the home run record is like the highest feat that anybody is really willing to take a look at and say, that is a hard one to do. Not every day every year is somebody coming even close to 61, even today, right? I mean, like Aaron Judge just got it last year for 62 in 155 games. and that's the American League record. So to think that, it's 2023, the season of 2023, somebody just broke the American League single season record, and he did it in 155 games. That's how much he was able to play due to injury. But he did it in 155 games, and it was 62 home runs. So to think in that time period, I mean, we're looking like, 60, 80 years difference. And now somebody is just now breaking the record on half of the league, right? Barry Bonds did it with 73. Mark McGwire doing it, with his 64 or 63. That is an amazing feat, yes. But to consider that it doesn't happen every single year. Like going into 98 when Mark McGwire did it, like I think the biggest number was like 45 or 48 in years before. You never got that close. And then all of a sudden 98 happens, and here's Mark McGwire doing what he's doing. So I think purely because of how difficult the feat is in every type of baseball season, you don't have somebody who is hitting 50 plus home runs every single year.
But in the movie that, was it Mantle and Maris both did hit around 50, I think, the year before and everything. So that you kind of get there. But I see your point. It is a much further, much harder thing to do, and harder thing to do throughout the season to get there. And so then, I guess then, given that level of difficulty that you ascribe to it and everything, so what did you think about how the movie portrayed his struggles throughout the season to do this? Right, because there is, the part of it where with Maris and the different things he had to go through, the ups and downs with the media, the things with his family, and all that. Do you think that they did a good job of displaying not only the struggles he had to go through personally, but do you feel that they showed a good job of how hard it is to do a baseball, or did the baseball scenes make it seem where he made it look easy?
I think that's a great question. Does the baseball scenes make it look easy? The baseball scenes are fluffy, if at best, in the movie.
So they're like a stuffed animal that you want to cuddle?
Yes, exactly.
Awesome.
Awesome. There's really no like massive baseball scene that gets you into the baseball moment, into that game. You don't necessarily get any of the details about how hard it is to hit or the struggles that they were having. Like there's no stats other than home runs that are brought up in the movie at all, right? You don't really get to see what their batting averages are. It's mentioned earlier on before they did the flip-flop of putting Roger Maris in front of Mickey Mantle in the lineup, which was at the beginning of the season. Lots of struggles there. But to me, the home run scenes that you see, it's fluff. It's, the ball is thrown, somebody swings. There really isn't a picture of, ball connecting and then the ball is going out and it's over the wall for a home run, So it's the baseball scenes are fluffy. That's how I'd like to describe it. Fluffy.
Okay. So then effectively then through it. So I guess, let's kind of get back and so take a step back from the real world and into, this movie is something to depict part of the real world, but taking, it's a single season, but stepping back from that is what the movie then gives and provides, not only then from a, if the baseball scenes just seem to be, fluffy or whatever, is there anything that grabbed you about Roger Maris' story in this? So then, being that you were already familiar with the record, I don't know how familiar you were with his personal story or personal struggles. Was there anything about that also then resonated with you as far as that made you appreciate more about him as a person?
Specifically Roger Maris?
Specifically Roger Maris.
I didn't really know much about him as a person, like family man or where he came from or anything like that. So as the movie is depicting him and showing, I really enjoyed the little tidbits. They don't really go deep into his family, right? They don't really go deep into his upbringings, But what you end up getting, just gives you a little bit of some of that comfort as to maybe why some of those beat writers in the movie kind of throw him under the bus in some ways to make him seem a little slow or a little.
He's not a good story.
Right.
Mantle's a great story.
Mantle is a great story.
Mantle's a great story. He's not a good story.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think I liked the way that, at least the way that the movie was portraying some of his lifestyle of, like, I'm doing baseball because I need to take care of my family, and this is what I do. I played, like when he was telling telling Mickey Mantle about himself, when Mickey Mantle was like, hey, I don't know anything about you. You never tell me anything about you. You never open up. You never talk about anything. He's like, well, what is there to know? I played high school. I was in high school, and I played baseball. I played basketball. I played football, and now I'm here. I'm condensing it into what he said, but I mean, he, to me, not knowing that he was, in air quotes, a simple man, I didn't realize, at least as the movie is depicting it, and I appreciate it, how they simplified it. He was just a working man who could play baseball very well, and he was using baseball and his tool sets to pay for his family and to continue to raise his boys and his wife. So I liked that aspect of it, that it wasn't a whole lot. They don't go deep into his livelihood or anything like that, but it's just enough to help you realize truly he was a simple man that was gifted in being able to play an amazing sport.
Exactly, and I think that was the thing that which I found interesting in his portrayal, his portrayal in the movie, and then also the reaction of the different sports writers in the movie. Because there's an argument to be made, I think, that the focal point of this movie is, or at least the driving force of the sports writers, right? The sports writers throughout the movie provide context when the plot demands it. We need some context about what's going on and what's happening here, and they provide history and all that. But they also provide the structure of and a reflection on the media of the time, which is, quite honestly, there's a lot of ways I think it'd be similar to the media now. Mickey Mantle was the story. He was a good interview. He was funny. He was charismatic. Everybody loved him. He had a lot of big fans. Roger Maris was effectively a blue collar worker that was really great at hitting the baseball, right? And so therefore he was like, yeah, this is because he effectively was like, I have a skill that I can do this thing and I can do it very well. And just because you idolize this ability, it doesn't mean that I necessarily have to as well. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I should think of myself as greater than just any other person, right? I just happen to have this skill and this ability, and I'm going to go through life, do it to feed my family, and then you're going to effectively, persecute me for it because I'm not interesting on the page, because that's not who I'm trying to be, And so I think that, so I think that difference in dichotomy as far as how they react to them is interesting. And also, I think it ties into the other part of it, which I was curious about your thoughts about this as well, is that the movie doesn't establish who Mickey Mantle is, right? The movie opens almost with the assumption that you already know who Mickey Mantle is, right? And when you know who he is, right? And I think this goes back to, which I'm going to sound like a broken record here about the hero worship thing. Especially for people that know who he is, the thing about this movie is I'm not aware of another instance, at least up until this point, where he was portrayed, Mickey Mantle was played and portrayed this way, where he was, basically he's a drunk. He's a womanizing drunk, and then he does end up living with Roger Maris and another player to be named later.
Come on.
Yeah. He's some guy. Another player to be named later who
it's Bob, but that's fine.
Exactly. Yeah. So exactly right. His name is he's so integral. They named him Bob. I mean, that even could be his real name, but you'd be like,
it is his real name.
You know what? If you were making up a character and saying he doesn't necessarily matter for the plot, your options are to do a Star Trek reference and call him Red Shirt or Bob.
Oh my God.
That's pretty much it. So,
okay.
Anyway, so
first of all, Bob is a real guy.
Yeah.
He played with them. That's his real name.
Yeah.
Poor. Oh
Yeah,
man,
poor Bob. He's basically in the trade. He's the player to be named later. Now, but they live together, and then they have that, and they go through it. But it depicts Mickey Mantle less as a godlike figure, but more like a troubled man, and I think that is one of the areas that the movie does well, as far as the not only the writing and the performance of that of portraying that, but also in the kind of breaking down or distilling, your hero was a real person. Now the impact of that, though, and I do understand that the impact of that does rely on the fact that you have to already know who Mickey Mantle is, right? Because if you don't, you just think that's what this guy was, and you're like, why does everybody like him so much, right? But the movie does a really good job of displaying and depicting Mickey Mantle as a regular human. And so I'm curious as well, since clearly we have established your bona fides of being far more into baseball than I am. When you first saw this and you saw him depicted this way, did it at all alter your perspective or your opinion of Mickey Mantle?
So like when I first saw this, when it first came out in the early 2000s, no,
or did you already know? Did you already know about all this?
No, it's like I grew up with stories of hearing about, like Mickey Mantle as the baseball player, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, I remember my dad and my uncles talking about Mickey Mantle, and they would talk about him, like in that womanizer type of way. Like, he was hitting all those home runs, but what else he was hitting on the other side, like when the day was over, he was hitting home runs. What else was he hitting up at the end of the day? And, so it didn't come too much of a surprise to me, but like to what you were saying earlier, like this to me is the best depiction of Mickey Mantle in a movie, based off of the information that I remember hearing or anything that you may be able to look up and seeing that, he was with many different ladies at the end of every night, and he was a big boozer and a big drinker, which, come on. I mean, that's like the Don Draper era, right? Not to pull in another show, but that you could drink at work. So
drink at work. He was smoking between innings, right? So I remember sitting there like he just got through hitting a home run. He's like, let me light one up. You would never see that today.
No, that stopped. Well, I mean, not so much today. I'm trying to remember. Just a couple of years ago, there was a coach that was still smoking out in the tunnel. You're not supposed to be able to see it, but like Lou Piniella was famous for having a cigarette in the tunnel or even out on the bench, as the game was going on in the 90s.
Right, but he was a manager, right?
Right, he was a manager, but from a player perspective.
Yeah, to see a player.
That always happens like out in the tunnel.
Yeah. So, it's the 60s. It was definitely a different time when it comes to
way different time.
Yeah, way different time.
Yeah. But from the other movies that that Mickey Mantle is mentioned or is part of a movie, they don't depict him the way that this movie did. And so, I mean, for that and for all the stories that I've heard, I appreciate that. And so when I first saw this, I don't remember having a thought in when I first saw this of going like, wow, that was really the Mickey Mantle. But now reflecting back on this after watching it again and, to bring it to the show and stuff. Yeah. I really appreciate the fact that they humanized him. They did not put him into a hero box or a hero pedestal that he is normally. When you speak of Mickey Mantle in the baseball community, he is a hero in the baseball terms, but a one-handed home run there, he was a hero that we got to see in the movie, and it happened in real life. The one-handed home run, you get to see it here in the movie. And so, that's somewhat, in baseball terms, that's a hero type of a moment. Like there's a guy who's grinding and he's got an injury and he knows that he's going to be there for his team, and he goes up with one arm to be able to still, hit a home run. That is the hero moment in baseball. But the hero moment in the movie, they don't make him a hero, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I found the one-handed home run thing to be interesting, where there's part of me that I understand that, okay, yeah, that would be a very difficult thing to do. And obviously he had a lot of adrenaline and he kind of, got up and then did the thing. And then there's the other part of me that's like, well, if you can do it with one hand, how hard can this be? Right. It was kind of weird where I was like looking at it going like, yeah, I don't know. It's like, and then on top of that, it's not like legit one hand. He had a hold of it with the other hand. So that was like my little controversial hot take where I was like, well, if he can do it with one hand, then shouldn't he have broken the record earlier? Because clearly with two hands, he should have been hitting 2 home runs a game or something, So that was, but that was, that was really me being, admittedly, that was me definitely being cynical about the whole thing because I was not familiar with that story in any way. And I get how it would enter into lore and how it could definitely be a big thing to have done that. But yeah, it was another part of the movie which is, another part of the movie where you're right, that the baseball scenes were fluffy and that, and I cannot believe I just used your word fluffy, but that, it was such that you were not invested in any given game or in any given situation. It was really more like the baseball's happening, but what the central theme and crux about everything is still these two men's lives and their journey together through this season.
Do you believe that you could, from your perspective, have an updated version of this movie?
I don't think so. And I guess the reason why I don't think so is because in 1961, when Roger Maris was breaking this record, he has a lot of the press and everything, fans, various people are against him. When Mark McGwire does it, everybody loves him, right? It was the biggest thing that in baseball. It was that was probably the last baseball season I actually paid attention to. Right. It was such a big deal when he was doing it, and it was so amazing, and it was so much fun, and everybody loved it. And so there's that. And then the Barry Bonds one, while I didn't pay as much attention to that either, at the same time, people weren't legitimately rooting against him. I think at the time, some were and everything like that, which we can discuss we can discuss that as well about what was going on there in the real life there. But I think that, and to bring it back around to the movie, and here's why. Here's why I think this. The movie itself, and I think this really speaks to, and also ties into what I think, like as far as like what you would do if you would watch this movie again, right? The movie itself is about Roger getting the record, right? The process of him getting the record, right? And the trials and tribulations that he went through in order to do that. And it's not about baseball. Right, because the baseball part of it, there's a few scenes here and there. We don't even cover the Yankees season. I mean, the team, like, when you watch the movie, you don't know what happened with their season. Did they win the World Series? Right, you can Google it. You don't even mention it. You can Google it and you can look it up, but they don't even mention it. So the team itself doesn't matter anymore. Like what happened with that season, anything doesn't matter. It only matters what he went through, and the crux of the story is the conflict behind how he was being treated in the outside world and how he was breaking the record of the revered Babe Ruth, and that, and all of that came with it. Whereas if you did Mark McGwire's, okay, so he's breaking a revered record, but not a revered record held by Mickey Mantle or held by Babe Ruth. It's held by Roger Maris, right? Which, especially in 1998, for most people, if you knew who Roger Maris was, you only did because he had this record. Right. If he didn't have this record, he would have been a good baseball player that would be potentially almost forgotten in terms of history. The crux of this movie is about how he was. The crux of the movie was the conflict with the sports writers, and honestly too, which the movie leaves out, how it continues to this day. Like he's not in the Hall of Fame, which is crazy, but the Hall of Fame is decided by sports writers, and they're still like, no, he's not good enough, right? So there's still that, and so I think that if you were to try to update it for the current time, it becomes what is the movie, because it wouldn't be about his struggles of going on, and, going through the record and all that stuff, because everybody's rooting for him, everybody wanted him to break the record, right? So I think that then is, that's not as much fun to be like, hey, this guy's doing really great, and we all think it's amazing, right? That's not a fun movie. But I do think also that part of it, not only part of the movie, by depicting the movie this way, it makes it where it also depicts the other thing that to me is unique to me about baseball as a sport, where the following, the fandom of it, the things that have of it, the sport of baseball is not inherently about the sport. It's about the culture around the sport, right? And it's about the way people feel about things. It is how you can make a movie like this where you're going to follow players in a season where the team, and I'll spoil this for you so you don't have to Google it, wins the World Series, and that never comes up, right? It doesn't come up at the World Series. It doesn't even come up how well the team is doing, right? Because what matters is the culture around the sport itself more so than the actual games that are being played on the field.
See, and I don't know. I mean, I definitely recognize that there's a culture of baseball, and then there's the sport of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this movie does cover more of the culture leading into the event of somebody getting a home run record or obtaining a home run record that is occurring in baseball. I agree with that. I don't know. See, to me, from a now I don't know what we're tangenting on, but
yeah, I guess that and to bolster I can bolster the argument about like why I think that with baseball. It is a thing of where not only with this movie but other movies, right, and other sports movies, everything you think about with entertainment. Baseball movies have the ability to be created, and people love them, and they are good movies. But when you're done with the movie, you realize, hey, there was no big game. There was no part of the actual part of baseball being played that was important to you enjoying this movie, right? The main example of a baseball movie that has that I can think of was a comedy, which is Major League, right? They have the big game at the end, right? But even that with the big game at the end, I don't remember. And I don't even remember if they did the resolution of the game, because the game itself still wasn't as important as. Oh no, they did. They had a resolution.
They won. And
they won the game because it got them into the playoffs. Blah blah blah. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, but baseball has a lot of where you couldn't, and that's part of where I think that with this sport and movies of this sport that allow you to enjoy the movies whether or not you actually like baseball. Because when you watch this movie 61, there are a few at bats, a couple people that catch things, and that's about it. You don't even have to understand how baseball works. All you have to understand about baseball is that there is a thing that if you hit a ball outside of the park, it's a home run. Outside of that, there's no requirement knowledge. There's no game where you're rooting for anyone, and you're not even rooting for an at bat. And that is part of how it's more about the culture, because he's going to get the record, so there's not like some suspense. They tell you in the opening scene he gets the record. So even if you didn't know, right, they literally tell you in the opening scene he gets the record. So
no, I get it. It's
the culture of baseball.
Right. No, and that was something that I kind of wrote down as a negative, for somebody who enjoys baseball as much as I do, as we all know now. I don't know how many times I'm going to say it. Hey, by the way, I like baseball. I love it. And but to take the opportunity that Billy Crystal had, where he went to Tiger Stadium and converted old Tiger Stadium into Yankee Stadium, and use everything that he possibly could at Tiger Stadium and convert it to make it look like the old Yankee Stadium. To take those opportunities, a full baseball stadium at your disposal. It wasn't active at the time. Tigers just moved out in 1998. And so the stadium is still in really good working order. The field is looking really good. And you don't have any shots. You have a couple of shots here and there of like of the field, and you can see that they take out some aspects of what Tiger Stadium looked like. It was a massive, massive iron monstrosity. The thing is, it was amazing. For those that were able to go to a baseball game there, it was absolutely amazing. You could like hear the whispers throughout the tunnels of baseball history in this place. I got a chance to go to a game there, and it was amazing. It was the year that they were going to be moving out, And it was fan appreciation day, and I got to walk on the field. I got a scoop of dirt from center field by the big 425 sign, and I got chips of paint and stuff from all over the stadium, because it was painted so many different colors throughout all the years. It was just paint on paint on paint, so you could chip it away off the ironwork. And so I got a bag of all this stuff. Probably got lead poisoning and everything, but it was totally worth it.
Well, just a little bit.
Just a little bit. It's tough. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
but
it wasn't fatal.
But I'll wrap it. My point is that you're telling an amazing story, and you had to find a historic place to be able to visualize it so that it wasn't just all green screen. And you found the most perfect place for it. And the shots, for the most part, are absolutely amazing throughout the movie. But there's no baseball action in this amazing stadium. And so to me, that was like one of the negatives. So you got the opportunity to take this stadium, and it is your backdrop, it is your everything for this film. But there's really no baseball in this stadium. There's shots of baseball occurring in this stadium, and it's helping tell the story somewhat. But yeah, no, I agree. It's we need more baseball in the movie.
Well, what was the scene that was being shot when you saw it live?
So when I was there, and Billy, and so they were shooting the movie. So I was there in 98 to just go and watch a game, which was great. And then later on went to a family reunion, and they were shooting the movie there. So we stopped by because my aunt absolutely loves Billy Crystal. So she wanted to see if she could see Billy Crystal. So we went there, and they were shooting a scene, got a shirt while they were shooting the scene.
And since this is not a visual medium, it is a white t-shirt with a diamond on it that says 61 with an asterisk in the middle of it. Inside of the baseball diamond are pinstripes.
Yep. There you go. Thanks, Ocean.
Not a problem.
So we were there and present for the scene where Roger Maris is walking up to the stadium, and a gentleman comes up to him and asks him for his autograph. And he said, "Hey, just sign an X for my son." And he signs the X and gives him the ball back. We were there for the scene off in the back. With pretty cool scene to be able to see shot. But at the time, you're there and not knowing, well, what's going on? What's this all about? And then to be able to watch the movie, anticipating like, what scene did we see? And it's a somewhat significant scene, later on, because that's what builds the crescendo of all of the hate that's written by the AP press. But, it's not knowing at that time when, what was that scene all about, and then seeing it in the movie. I thought it was kind of cool, from personal standpoint that, here I was there in Detroit multiple times, been on the field, and then to be able to see this scene be shot, that was pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Well, but then I guess though that does, I guess then are you then, as far as the movie goes and
Mm-hmm.
as far as the baseball scenes go and everything, instead of viewing it as, to me, which I view it as the culture of baseball, right? That it ties into even going to a game. For example, like I opened the show saying that like, I watch baseball on television when it's, ninth inning, game 7 of the World Series. I'll watch that. Right, but going to a game is lots of fun, loads of fun. I love going to a live baseball game. Had a good time. Like I said, I was on the other side of the country, Durham, North Carolina. I was like, oh, we got to go to a Durham Bulls game, right? But the thing about it, but that to me has always reinforced that the culture and everything around baseball is the entertaining part. Like when people think about going to a baseball game, right, and maybe even like with you now, your order may be different since you clearly love baseball. But like, when you list out, I went to a baseball game and it was fun. And here's the list of reasons of why it was fun. What number on my list do I get to when I finally say the game? Right? Versus the atmosphere, the food, the hanging out with friends, drinking some beer. It was a beautiful day. It was fun like that. It's like how far down do I go before I'm like, oh yeah, and the game was good. Right? So that, and that to me it's a testament to me in that with baseball, it isn't just about the game. You're not just sitting there focused on the game. It's not like if you go to a football game where it's like, oh no, I'm going to watch the game, right? Or even a basketball game, I'm going to watch the game. When I go to a baseball game, it's like, no, I'm going to hang out with my friends and we're going to have a great time. And oh, by the way, while that great time is happening, there's a baseball game going on in front of us, right? Where that doesn't exist with other sports, the same way, and so that, and I think that is, and I don't view that as inherently a negative. I view it as unique to baseball, which also allows you to make, in this case, a good baseball movie where they don't really play baseball.
Right. No, and I think that is one of the nice things, or one of the attractive and alluring things of baseball, that, you don't have to be in the know of baseball when it kicks off in March 28th for majority of the teams. You don't have to know the lineup up and down to go to a game and experience what you just mentioned. You don't have to. You don't have to be that fan. And that's the thing that's great about this movie too, that I think is very parallel and akin to the cultures as you were indicating. And I love that terminology, the culture of baseball. I think that is very much akin to what Billy Crystal was trying to bring to this movie. You don't have to know everything about the 61 Yankees or the 61 season as a whole, as all of MLB. You don't have to know anything about Mickey Mantle. You don't have to know anything about Roger. You can just get into this movie and start understanding that, it's a story of the struggles of two dudes going after a record that is revered as like a very amazing, difficult record to break. And it's beloved because of Babe Ruth. Yeah, it's great. You don't need to know a ton of baseball stuff to get into the story that Billy Crystal is presenting for us. Not being a baseball connoisseur, now watching it now, could you re-recommend it to yourself on your initial watch?
Yeah, on my initial watch, I thought was really a few things. One, I did enjoy the movie the first time. The one of the things about it was I was aware of who Mickey Mantle was. I did find the depiction of him as a regular human being to be very interesting. And I do find sports history movies, I'm kind of a little bit of a sucker in the bag for those type of things. I like sports history stories. Right. So I did enjoy it then. And I think that I really found that I enjoyed it more the second time around, when I wasn't being bogged down, I think, as much with, like, I didn't know anything about Roger Maris other than his name. And so then I'm kind of looking at these other aspects of, like, well, what's he going through with his life? And I'm identifying with him as a character and everything. And that makes it where through that prism, this is an entertaining movie. But I think that on the second time of the rewatch is really when I started realizing that where I started enjoying it even more was that it was much more about the culture and much more about the hero worship of the sports writers and not about the two men playing baseball, right? And I think that is, so that created for me where I enjoyed it more the second time around, because at that point I'm in some ways watching a different movie, right? The second time I saw it, I didn't care about him breaking the record or any of that stuff, because you already know what's going to happen. So what am I? It's like, yeah, no, right? So and even the first time where I knew he would get it, you know that, right? But it was a nice journey. So I think that it held up a lot on rewatch, watching it the second time around for that reason, because I then saw a different movie. So what about for you? So this is clearly you've seen this more than once. Did it resonate for you in a different manner the second time, or did it just it bolster what you thought about it the first time?
I think a little bit of both. Like, when you and I were talking the other day, I pulled away from one of our conversations, just like the opening scene, just how baffled I was when we were talking about it. You're like, yeah, in the opening scene, they pretty much tell you that the record is broken. He's sitting there with the bat that Mickey Mantle used and Roger Maris used, and I was just like, I never even really thought of it like that. So like I was going into the movie on my initial watch in the early 2000s, just knowing what I know about baseball and about the act and all that. It was great because it wasn't about the baseball record and everything around baseball itself. It's around the background information that you're not going to know unless you knew something specific about the people. So like the guys just moving in together, to me that's still like as a baseball player and as a baseball lover, I love that scene so much where Roger Maris and Bob are talking to Mickey Mantle, trying to, get them to come in and have him move in so that they can have a clear head and a good Mickey Mantle for the rest of the season. I love that. Like, I love that little background tidbit of information that I just didn't know. As a baseball fan, you just might not know that information. So on my initial watch of the movie, I like that kind of stuff.
I guess that you bring up an interesting thing there, and this is honestly, to me, that was a point I had a quibble with the movie on. I agree with you in that scene is great as far as what they're depicting, what they're doing, and then trying to make it well. I need a clear Mickey Mantle, clear-headed Mickey Mantle for us to get to the World Series and win the whole thing, because we went last year and lost, right? And then the movie never pays that off, because you don't get to the World Series. It doesn't matter. The fact that he was healthy throughout the whole season becomes irrelevant throughout the rest of the movie. Because, yeah, it's nice that he was there part of the home run chase, but the real crux of that wasn't for the home run chase. Roger Maris could have hit those home runs with or without Mickey Mantle. The thing, well, yeah,
come on,
he can without him. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can quote unquote pitch around him, but the Yankees are always stacked teams. Anyway, they're fine. He could have hit him anyway. The thing about him being there was about winning the championship, and that the movie doesn't pay that scene off by letting you get to that point, because that's why he was there. Because that team was good enough that with and I do still stand by. I think that with or without Mickey Mantle, he's gonna hit those home runs. But also with or without Mickey Mantle, that team would have still probably won the pennant. They were still the best team in Major League Baseball. They still possibly would have won the pennant. They probably would not have won the World Series, right? And that's what they needed him for. But the movie doesn't pay that off. The movie just ends before that even happens.
No, I get that point, but without him there, without his clear head, Mickey Mantle doesn't accomplish what Mickey Mantle accomplished, even though he was hurt at the back half of the year. And even then, if Mickey Mantle isn't in the lineup for a majority of the year, okay, Roger Maris isn't going to do what he does, because Roger Maris couldn't do it behind Mickey Mantle seeing different pitches versus being in front of him, which he was seeing different pitches. See, that's the difference. When Maris...
No, he was behind him. He couldn't do it when he was in front of him.
No, he couldn't do it behind him. When he was hitting behind Mickey Mantle, he couldn't do it. And then that's when his batting average at the beginning of the year was horrible. He wasn't doing anything. He was just rolling over pitches. Then they put him in front of Mickey Mantle. And then that's when it changed actually for both of them. Roger Maris starts hitting home runs because he's seeing way more pitches. He's seeing more fastballs to protect. He's there to protect Mickey Mantle. Then when he gets on base, Mickey Mantle started getting walks. He was getting walked more. So then it puts a different pressure point. And see, they don't really go into that because they don't go too much into the baseball aspects of moving the dynamics around, of moving Roger Maris in front of Mickey Mantle. And even though I know I need to tie it somehow back to these guys being healthy and happy, but having Mickey Mantle moving in with you and having him as a clear head is going to provide a truer Mickey Mantle on the base path, considering he was downgrading himself even at the beginning of the season. My bad knees and my bad shoulder. So Mickey Mantle wasn't the healthy Mickey Mantle. He was he was on his way out to the pasture. But they needed him as clear-minded as possible. So, I mean, even though they don't necessarily go off and talk about this team winning the World Series, which is ultimately the goal, is what you're saying in that scene, and we don't get it at the end. I'm saying I like it because it is bringing these two guys closer together to be able to achieve what they needed to be able to push each other. If you don't have a healthy Mickey Mantle, you're not going to be able to have Roger Maris do what he was doing.
Man, Jim, it is always great to talk about movies with you. To everyone listening to this, thank you for downloading the show. If you'd like to continue the conversation about this or any other sports movie, contact us on our Discord page at truestory.fm. Please like, rate, review, and most importantly, share this podcast with anyone you know that loves sports and movies.